Alright, what is happening, everyone? It's me, Troi, and I'm here, of course, with another video. I don't know why there's this I say of course, because it's not like I upload every day. I don't got time. I wish, you know, what is that song by, I don't know who sung that song. I wish I could do stuff like that, but I can't. I cannot. Anyway, that aside, I did take the time to make the space and the time to set this up because I do want to share or talk about or get some opinions about a specific genre, specific series, or specific, I can't talk, author. And I love to make these videos and just open up the floor for just some conversation because I like to hear from other people who are familiar with the work that I'm either traversing through or have some questions about, similar to my reading of The Wheel of Time a few years ago when I got started with that. Now, the thing is that I have been bitten by this book of nostalgia, which has taken me back. It's crawled underneath my skin like a Stephen King book. Whatever be going on in his books, it's crawled under my skin, went up to my scalp somewhere, and it's I don't know, whatever the brain functions are, whatever region of the brain, it's went into there, and it's taken me back to 2007, the summer of 2007, when I was beginning to read much more. I'll say this, when I began to read urban fantasy books, a series or a genre that I have largely taken myself away from because I was just sick of a lot of the tropes that have taken place in those books. You know, there's the main character who's a woman and she's in a love triangle between a vampire and a werewolf. The repeated cycle of, oh my god, I just couldn't do it anymore. And just the way that some of these authors were writing women characters who, you know, the majority of writers in the urban fantasy field are women, just kind of didn't register that well with me. That aside, with this nostalgia that has been haunting me throughout this summer, this dog days of summer, I decided that I wanted to read some urban fantasy. I want to dedicate August to reading urban fantasy, and I ended up reading 2 books by an author who I said I didn't necessarily say, but there was a 4-year delay that I decided that I wouldn't read any of her work, and then the bug hit me and I found myself right back in that space, and that's Laurel K. Hamilton. I read Sucker Punch as well as Raphael by her. I honestly, though I had so much critique and criticism of her book Serpentine a few years ago, you know, that break was perfect for me because I don't know, I grew as an author. No, I'm not an author, but I grew as a reader. And what I can say now is that despite reading those books and being bitten by that nostalgia, because that's when I discovered the series that many years ago, I don't think that it's worth talking about. Honestly, I walked away from the books with, there's nothing I can argue with. There's nothing I could even have a criticism about. The books are what they are, and I think that I read them or picked the latest 2 up mostly because of nostalgia, you know, and that's it. I think that that's a good thing. I'd rather it be that way than to find myself enraged by her portrayal of women and just almost everything I spoke of in that last video that I did separately talking about one of her books. So I'm over it. I'm okay. I'm in a cool space reading the books. They don't bother me as much as they did a long time ago. I realize that they're just not gonna go anywhere. They're just gonna be what they're gonna be, and I'm reading them mostly just for nostalgic reasons, and I've settled with that. I don't have to fight myself about it, and I'm okay with that. I still enjoy pieces of them, and that's enough. That's enough for me. So then I decided that I'm going to read Patricia Briggs's work, her Mercy Thompson series. I read Moon Called earlier this year, which is the first book in the series. Now, I actually tried to read this when it first came out because I was working in a bookstore at the time. Couldn't do it. Couldn't get into it. And that was during that period. Couldn't get into it. But I did read this earlier this year, and I found it to be just kind of okay. Not really that much of a wow factor. We know that Mercy Thompson she's half Native American, but she is what they call a shapeshifter. Is it a shapeshifter or something to that degree? it's a shapeshifter and whatnot, but she can basically turn into a coyote at will. And so within this urban fantasy world, there are werewolves and there are vampires and there are fae and other such creatures, and she's involved with a lot of the werewolf politics within her area. And that's kind of, I was like, okay, fine. But this month I ended up reading the second book, which was Bloodbound, and this had the majority of umbrella focus or premise, had a lot to do with the specific vampire politics, and I enjoyed this one much more. There was even a couple of creepy scenes in this book that I thought that the author did really well. So, you know, I would give it probably about a 6. A lot of good stuff that happened here. Like I said, I really enjoyed the vampire politics, but you know, I think that there were some areas that I felt like could have been done a lot better. And one of my biggest hesitations is the romance. Here we go. The triangle romance. But nonetheless, I did enjoy Bloodbound. So enthusiastic, I went ahead and read the third book, which I got actually just a month ago, which is Iron Kissed, which is the third book, like I said. And this one had a lot more to do with the Fae. So this is where one of Mercy's friends, her previous boss, is being framed for murder, and it's up to her to, you know, find the true culprit and bring justice, etc. And so there's a lot of politics between the Fae, the werewolves, the vampires, the law enforcement. It's just a big melting pot of politics and statutes and laws and decrees and all that kind of fun stuff. This book was good. I think this had the much more mystery procedural that I enjoy in speaking to urban fantasy works. But the author did something in this book that turned me the freak off. And for those who are familiar with the series, they know what I'm talking about. It's one of those things where I can appreciate an author addressing it as the book, as it being the focus of the book itself. But when it's done where it ends up happening in the book, it feels much more like a plot device and a moment to create some drama in a very unnecessary way. If you don't know what that is, it's an assault that begins with the letter R that happened to the main protagonist, which this is a first person narrative, and although the author didn't go into details, thankfully so, it still was troubling for me, because I was just like, I always try to understand why this is a choice, like I said, that happens in the book, and then this occurred late in the book, so you left us with just this small amount of space to, as readers, to sort of reconcile with what had just happened. But of course, that's going to bleed over into the fourth book, and that's where my issue is, because I found myself going, I don't think I necessarily want to go any further after that. I don't want to go into that space with the character of Mercedes at all after having lived this traumatic experience. I just don't think that I want to do that. I just don't, because I feel like in my brain, my brain is still going back to why did the author feel so compelled to have made that happen to her? Like, it just felt like a plot device. That's just the only thing I can come up with. Where there could have been a number of different ways to have or sort of redressed a bit of character drama or character trauma, if you will, to have kept us going on and on. But for that to have been the choice was just troubling for me, and I think that may just be something personal, I suppose. But I was on the ride with this series until that happened, and although I do kind of want to read the fourth book, which is called Bones Cross, I don't want to deal with that dark. I don't want to I guess you can say I don't want to carry into that dark cloud of events, because it's something that has to be addressed. It has to be addressed over and over again, and it will carry itself throughout the rest of the series. It's just, I don't know. I don't think that I really want to go on with the series after that, and it's really unfortunate. On top of that, the werewolf politics, the werewolf antics or whatnot have worn me out just a bit. Like I said, I really enjoy the vampire aspects much more, even much more than the fae aspects, because I feel like with the fae aspects within this book or this series, they keep giving us this where they're dangerous, but Mercy always, you know, she always gets a way around a lot of things, and it's just kind of annoying at this point. And that's another thing that gets on my nerves about these books, is that there's always some help for her. There's always some help. But she really shined at the end of this book. And this is kind of where I'm left with. This was the Mercy that I was really enjoying that occurred at the end of this book. So I don't know if I'm going to read anymore. I kind of want to. I think that it will probably be best for me to go ahead and check out Bone Cross from the library and just kind of get a feel for what the author's going to do and how she's going to address these issues. But I don't see myself being able to keep reading this book with both that cloud of assault hanging over Mercy, as well as the love, romance, and the drama with the werewolves, because that's exhausting to me. I can understand why people love it. True enough, I get it, but I don't know if I can do both. So that's my question. That's my dilemma. I just like to hear from readers. You know, what do you think? Is it worth continuing? Did you stop? I just would like to know, because out of all the urban fantasy books, and for the majority, like I said, I've quit reading this genre for. That's kind of an example of why. You know, I still want to connect, still want to remain connected to these books or these stories. And, you know, I think the best way I can do that is by going to the classics, many of which I tried to read years ago. But with that said, I did collect a couple of books that are classics as well. Fate Hunters, Skinwalker. So I might skip Mercy and just go with this book, which is the first book in this series. Touch the Dark is another book that I tried to read by Fate. This was by Fate Hunter. Did I say that? I already said that right. Touch the Dark is by Karen Chance. This is another book that I tried to read back in 2006, right around the time when I was reading Hamilton and Harris and Kim Harrison. And this was another one, another option. Couldn't get through it. I don't know. I still have it. I just couldn't go any further. But I was like, maybe I'll give this another try. But I don't want to read about no sexy vampire time, honestly. And then I got Seanan. Is it Seanan? Seanan. She'll probably get mad if I say her name wrong. McGuire's Rosemary and Rue, which is October Day's first book. I heard this is really popular. I bought this about 3 years ago and haven't read it yet. But this is a very contending offering as opposed to Briggs. And then, of course, I want to read the rest of L.A. Banks's werewolf series. And that's her L.A. Banks right there. Her Crimson Moon series. So kind of similar to this, but I think the difference is that there's no love triangle, number one, as far as I remember. And number two, the main protagonist is actually a special force agent. So there's a lot of procedural that goes into that, and not so much there's drama, but then there's actual procedural, a plot, a murder, something to investigate, I guess you will. Just different vibes, different tones, and I doubt what happened to Mercy in this book would occur in Banks's books, because I'm familiar with her work, her other works. So that's it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Y'all have to let me know.